Welcome to the Purpose Driven Mom Show, episode 403. Today, I'm excited to bring you an interview that we actually did for the summit, which is now over. We hope you were able to attend. But this is with Amanda Boleyn, all about how to create systems in your home. We always say the phrase like you're the CEO of your home. And we talked all about this today. What do you do when you don't want to worry about systems? What do you do when you feel like it's too structured? How do you get that to-do list from being the only thing you ever work on and more? So if you want to connect more with Amanda, if you want to see the show notes, go to apurposedrivenmom.com/podcast 403. Enjoy this. If you didn't get a chance to be at the summit, we missed you. And we hope that this episode gives you a little sneak peek of what you'll see for next year. All right, welcome back to the Purpose Driven Mom Summit. I'm super excited to chat with you today. I'm here with Amanda Boleyn, and we're talking about how do you get organized? How do you get systems in your home? How do you feel less frazzled with everything on your plate? Amanda, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here with you all.
Yeah, and I think this is definitely going to be a session the moms are going to be like, tell me more, like help me, right? Like help me, because that's where we struggle. Before we jump in though, for people who aren't familiar with you, could you tell us just a little bit about you, your family? And I always love to hear like the cliff notes, like this, the journey, right? That entrepreneur
Oh, geez.
roller coaster that kind of has brought you here.
Yeah, well, I'm born and raised in Iowa in the Midwest, and currently my husband and I and our 19-month-old daughter, Bowie, find ourselves living in Charleston, South Carolina, which has always been a dream of ours. It's been a beautiful journey. And my high and low, gosh, I quit corporate. I left corporate back in 2012, so about 2 years after I graduated. And I've always been a freelance on my own business owner, solopreneur since then. And it's definitely been filled with highs and lows. Some people may know or may not know, I used to have a podcast called She Did It Her Way, which I ran for 7 years and then shut that down, and still do my subcontract work. I do sales training for tech startups, and I also have my online business. So that's a little bit of the journey.
Yeah, and I love to hear it because we have so many moms who come who think, could I do this? What could I do? And everyone has this different story
Hmm.
that kind of leads you here. So it's always, I think, inspiring to hear because I think we see people and we're like, oh, I could never. And it's like, well,
Hmm.
we all have to start somewhere. And I think one of the ways that people like get in their head about what they can do and what they can't do is they're like, well, I'm a hot mess, right? Like that hot mess mom,
Hmm.
like I can't do it type of attitude. So I want to actually start there of why you think so many moms like struggle with even staying or being organized at all.
Oh my gosh. Well, first, I have such an appreciation for moms ever since I became one. I
Yep.
think that is sort of the trend, is that you never really recognize. I mean, I say all the time, I'm like, how did my parents do this? Like, how did my mom do this? It's crazy. And I would say like, oh man, there's just so many things that when you become a mom, your brain literally neurologically changes. I was just listening to a podcast on Rich Roll podcast, and they had a neurologist there, and it's just saying like how much the female brain changes when we're pregnant, when we have babies, when we go through perimenopause, menopause, like all of that, it changes. And so I think the first thing is just to be easy on yourself and allow yourself that grace and that space. From a tactical standpoint, I'm really big, as you were talking earlier, about creating systems, whether it's in business or within a household, and really simplifying and building in those processes to help us maintain a order that then helps us ultimately free up our time from before. Maybe it's like managing all of these things. And once we create the systems and build the foundation of that, we can then shift from being in a hot mess, express, if you will, to working the system and freeing up time and also energy. Because I find one of the challenging things is just the mental energy. It's not even my time, but it's the mental energy that I'm thinking about all the things from lunches, laundry, like you name it, where part of that is a mindset shift that we have to work through. But there are some tactical things that we can do to implement to relieve the challenge and the mindset piece that makes it easier for our brains to go ahead and manage everything that we've got going on. So I just want to say I acknowledge there's a whole mindset mental piece. I probably lean more towards the tactical side, not saying that I'm ignoring the prior one, but that's also equally as important.
No, and I like that you bring that up because we were just talking about this in my membership. We were making like our goal plan for our hobbies, right? So I like latch hook. It's like a new hobby. I want to learn to crochet. I like to read. And I was saying how I still have to make a plan for that because it's
Mm-hmm.
fun. It's enjoyable. I'm
Oh
tired.
yeah.
I have 3 kids. Like I want to go to bed, but I still want to accomplish these goals. So it's coming up with a plan around it. And someone's like, well, you take all the fun out of it. And I'm like, no, my brain needs me to make a
Mm-hmm.
plan because Cara at 9 p.m., who's like, oh, great, I'm going to pull my craft stuff out, does not want to do any of that, right? But
Mm-hmm.
Cara in Sunday, who's making around the plan for it, is more on the same page. So I think
Right.
is acknowledging like, it's not you, like we need a plan that can help us. And I think a lot of that starts with maybe like a reprioritization of things. So I want to talk a little bit about priorities because I know the moms right now are like, cool, but I have this and I have this and I have this and I have this. And like, I don't even know how to manage my time because there's so much on my plate. What advice
Mm.
could we give those moms who are coming in just already just so overloaded that they can't even think about, yeah, sure, we all call it like the home CEO over here, right? Like,
Mm.
I'm home CEO. I'd love to make a system, but I have this long list of things and my brain is here. Like, how do I prioritize what matters?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I want to go back to is you had mentioned the planning, and Cara at on Sunday afternoon is using her prefrontal cortex to plan. And that's great because we want to use the prefrontal cortex, which just goes back to like how important it is to plan. And then in the moment at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, she may not want to do it, but it's just reminding ourselves that like the future self and the benefits of actually creating time to do that thing. I know that some Tuesdays or Wednesdays I don't always want to go to tennis, but I'm just so amped up afterwards and my husband sees it. He's like, I will do whatever we need to do to protect that time for you to go to tennis. And so it does take there's learning that rhythm. Gosh, I like what there's so many things to do because I experience this with business owners. They're like, I have so many things to do, like I can't join your program, like I can't do that. And I think it's actually those that say it that need it the most, right? And it's really about allowing things to be messy in certain compartments, at least for me, what I think is that in order to get a system in place, it's really being okay with things being a mess and almost breathing through that to create the system. And it's just also having a plan. So, um, knowing like meal prepping, like what is the plan around meal prepping? When do you do it? Are you doing laundry all the time or do you want to consolidate it to one day a week? Do you have a weekly meeting with your spouse to go over a certain checklist of things that are important? Maybe it's the calendar. So identifying opportunities where you can find rhythm and routine to build that in, because over time, when you do that, you'll become more efficient at what you do. And then it's going to take less brain power and energy versus feeling like you're in reactive mode. You can be in proactive mode.
Yeah. Okay. Can we talk about this rhythm and routine? Because I know there's also a lot of moms, because I love that concept who are very much like, I don't want to be boxed in. I don't want to
Mm,
do all those things. And they think systems feels too like formulaic. It feels too
mm,
cold. It feels too business, right? Like I hear that a lot where it's like, this is my home. Like it's not, I don't need a system for this because it's not the way they operate. How can we encourage those moms that maybe lean towards more that rhythm word, right? And it can
mm,
work for you even if you don't want like, I don't like super structured, but I like a plan, right? So can you talk
mm-hmm.
about that?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Now it's like bridging into like there's so many things that my brain is saying to me right now. First of all, I find that constraints actually most people like you just shared, most people think constraints mean lack of freedom. I think the opposite. When we create constraints and routines, it actually gives us more freedom because we know exactly how we're investing and spending our time and we're not leaving it up to being in reactive mode. That being said, I still plan for weekends and pockets of time of like, I don't know what we're going to do. We're just going to leave it up to the moment, but like that's the plan. And that allows for our family, specifically my husband and I, because Bowie's only 19 months old, but to be in sync with each other. And from like a tactical planning standpoint is I like to say, like, look at your anchors, and anchors are things that are standing appointments that maybe you can't necessarily change. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but like an anchor for our family calendar is Tuesday night tennis from 6:30 to 8. An anchor on the weekends on Saturday and Sunday is Bowie's nap time from like 1 to 3 or 1:30 to 3:30. So like working with those anchors and getting them on the calendar and then saying, okay, like how do we want to plan and map our time? I totally get though that if you're not used to planning, the idea of planning and committing to a plan is scary. Like the brain wants to freak out because I've never done this before. And what is this going to do? And I think that in that situation, I like to say like nothing is permanent and I can always redecide. And I do this so much in so many different areas. But in this case, I would just encourage anyone who's listening to commit to making a plan and following through with the plan for a week and just see what happens. Like get curious. You don't have to keep it. If you don't like it, you can change it. You can always redecide. But allowing yourself the opportunity to just experience it rather than going into it thinking it's an all or nothing at the end, which
Yeah.
I think that sort of mindset in general is really helpful. But in this case, it's like you can always redecide, make a plan, try it out, get curious. Do we like it? Do we not? What did we like? What do we don't? What do we want to change and play with it? Also, the other thing that I was going to say is like software systems are really important. I know sending out, I don't, do you send out holiday cards?
I do not.
Mm.
That was one of those non-negotiables I made of things. I don't go to baby showers. I don't. What was it? Is it Kendra Adachi's book where she talks about the lazy genius? She talks about like black and white rules you make for yourself, and when you make
Okay.
them, your brain can doesn't
Yeah.
have to think. So like this is a silly one, but like I love crab cakes. So if I'm at a restaurant and they have a crab cake, I don't even need to look at the menu. So I've made that non-negotiable with myself
I
that I'm just going to
love
do that.
that.
So I also have made that I don't go to baby showers because I just don't want to. I'll send a gift and or wedding shower. Like I just don't do that. Very obviously if it's someone very close, but nope.
Yeah.
And I don't do holiday cards.
I love it. Okay. So, well, but on the same, like, let's say I know like setting holiday cards is a really big pain point for a lot of people. So I always look for like, is there a software system or what system can I create around this? So Postable is a free online system that you create an account and then you send that link out to all the people in your network, your family and friends, and they fill out the information so that when it comes time to sending holiday cards, if you send holiday cards, it's all centralized in one place. You're not having to like reinvent the process every single year. So finding opportunities about like, how do I create a system around this? Do you grocery shop one day a week? Are you like, is it non-negotiable that you're only doing one grocery store versus like 5 grocery stores? And so doing those things, Cara, I am like blown away. I still can't like get off the fact that you don't do baby showers or wedding showers. Wow.
Well, and
Good
so
for
I will
you.
also say I'm 40. So I'm also at the point where most of my friends are done. Like most of my
Yeah.
friends are married or we're done with the kid phase. But I just was over it. I was like, that's like a really
Yeah.
long time on my weekend. And my like one of my highest values is my time. And
Yeah.
and again, I have 3 kids. So like our weekends are packed. Like there's just already so much. So to take that many hours to do that, if it's a really, really close friend, I would
Yeah.
make an exception. But if one of my husband's friends, like we joke, like we're in this stage where like his friends are getting remarried, and so like he's like, so like
You're like, I don't do those for
yes,
remit. No.
yes, but he's like, oh, if I got invited to that wedding shower, like I don't really know her, like I would send a gift and I would take my
Yeah.
gift back. And so, but I think what's important there is the value of it, right? Like I know so many people back to
Mm,
the cards who love to send cards, like they love to write them out, and it's funny because that's not something that at all is something I care about. But I had a member of my team who loved that. And she was like, let me start a sunshine club and I will send them. Like you paid me the postage and the stickers and the cards and I will send them out for you. So we started to do a system in our business where
hmm
if we're on a coaching call and something happens, somebody's sick, a kid thing, like somebody, like a death, whatever, or a good thing, we put it on a list. That was our system. We made everyone on my team knows it. If you hear it, you just put it on the list. And then once a month, that person goes and sends cards to the people. It
mm,
provides so much value to the people who love it. I think they feel super appreciated. That person loves doing it. So it's great. And it's not something I have to do. And so
right.
I've learned that it's important to find like what matters to other people, but also what's aligned with my values and being okay with delegating out the stuff that doesn't fit for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you don't have to say your year, but when's your birthday? What month?
Oh, it's April 3rd, actually. I will be 40 in 2 weeks of this
So
birthday.
you're Sorry, I'm going to astrology route for
1984.
a second.
Yes.
No, but
An
like, okay,
Aries.
so oh, you're an Aries. Ooh,
Yes.
okay,
I'm
that
very
makes you
Aries.
you got a lot of fire. Yeah, I
I
love
am
it.
very Aries. I am an Aries, Enneagram 3, wing 2 to the T. Like you could write a book about
Oh my
it. I
gosh.
feel like
Yeah, that's so funny. Okay.
yeah.
I was like, maybe she's a Virgo or something because you're like so detailed. And anyway, I
Yeah.
digress. I feel like I'm getting off topic there. But the one thing you had mentioned something that reminded me of like, it's just so important to also slow down and just question everything that we're doing to think about like, is this something that we want to do with our time? Is this valuable? What is the trade-off? I think that is the big thing because when we say yes to one thing, we're indirectly saying no to another. And really identifying and knowing that there's a difference between time and energy. We could do something we love for an hour and feel super energized after it. Or we could do something for 15 minutes that we loathe and is like, oh, it's so heavy that makes us tired for hours after it too. So bringing that awareness between the two of them.
I like that you brought that up too, because I was thinking about other like trade-offs I've had because we were
Hmm.
just talking about this on one of my coaching calls about like it's like time, money, and they're all energy, right? And like it is that. And like one of those things is I started to use Instacart and Target pickup. And I've not
Mm.
been inside of a Target in like months. And I
Yeah.
just don't do it. And I'm paying a little more for my Instacart, but that time value exchange for me, like that works. So back to the tech, I think that can help. I think it's
Yeah.
also like looking at like what do I have? And like, how do I systematize that? Which I would love to hear your
Hmm.
thoughts because, like, some people, like, yeah, you say try it out, see if I like it, but like, I don't feel like I have. I know there's lots of moms that come to me and they're like, I don't even have any system. I have nowhere to start. I don't even know where to begin. Like, how can we help them take what's already happening in their day to day and start to create a system so they can try it out?
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of said the first thing is like make a list of all the things that you do every single day and every single week and just brain dump it. Give yourself a 20-minute timer, get it all out there, and then go line by line and ask yourself, like, can this be outsourced or can this be systematized? Now, obviously, when you outsource, there could be it's a time financial trade-off constraint, but just play with it. Go with it through of like, okay, I'm doing grocery shopping. I don't really care to do it. I would like to outsource this, whether it happens now or later. And when you can see everything that you are doing and then identify, like, okay, do I even want to be doing this? Like maybe you're doing things that it's like, uh, do I need to be doing this? I have friends that outsource their laundry, they outsource grocery shopping, they outsource like the holiday cards. They have a cleaner that comes to their house once or twice a month. And so, and again, these are all luxuries in terms of time, energy, and trade-off. My husband and I agreed to the way that we split our financials is like we both will give a part of our monthly allowance to put into a pot to have a cleaner come. And like that's just beneficial for us. But going back, just give yourself 20 minutes, a list of all the things that you're doing, get it out, do a brain dump, and then go through that list and the questions you ask, like, is this something that I even want to do? Can this, like, does it even need to be happening? Do I want to do it? Can it be outsourced or can there be a system in place for it? I live and breathe by my digital calendar. I do not, I may start like with a paper form if I have a to-do list, but it immediately gets back on my calendar. And the reason being is because the calendar doesn't lie in terms of how much time that we have. And so when you plan the 15 to 30-minute round trip for drop off and pickup when it comes to school, like you are budgeting, I call it time budgeting. You are budgeting that time just like you would your money and you're allocating and accounting for that. And I think what happens where we get into this trap sometimes is like we don't do that. And so we're running off of like either a massive to-do list written out or it's in our brain and we don't get it out on paper or out anywhere. And so we feel like we have all this to do, but when we can transfer it and put it on a calendar and assign a time with it, we can actually realistically see like, oh, here's how I'm spending my time at this time. Here's when I'm going grocery shopping. I'm putting a 2 hour time block. In the time block of going grocery shopping, I've got my list and things that I need to get. I've got my 15 minutes to drop off Bowie at Nanny Share, and then I've got to come back. So, like, really having it mapped out is really helpful understanding like time budgeting and what we're doing with it.
Yeah. And I think it starts with like what's already happening to go
Hmm.
from there. Because I think a lot of us feel like really out of control with our time because it's just
Yeah.
happening to us. And one of the things I like to empower moms is like we can be in control. Like we all have that
Yes.
24 hours. It's the same, right? It looks different for everybody. So it's knowing
Hmm.
what I'm doing with my 24 hours and what I want to do to like how I want to spend it, right? Like there are things that we value in our home that you might not. Like for me, like I said to my husband, like, I like to read. And I was like, if I don't read for a little bit every day, like I am not good. Like I was like, I just need that downtime, right? And somebody else might be like, well,
Mm.
that's frivolous because you have dishes in the sink. Okay, but that's
Yeah.
okay because that's what I know that I need. I would pick my book over the dishes any day. And eventually I'll get
Yeah.
to the dishes because I have a plan for when the dishes are going to happen. But it's
Yeah.
knowing that. You said something before that I love too, how you
Mm.
like don't plan like your downtime. You're like, hey, we're going to be flexible. We have our anchors. I think that's another important thing when we're making these systems. Like I time block my week, but I don't time block my weekends for that exact thing. And it's like you're planning for the freedom and you're
Yeah.
planning for it. And I think that does something to our brains to allow us to say, okay, maybe I am trying to focus on all my systems and my rhythms and my structure during the week. And I have these places where I can just like decompress or not have to be planned all the time. And I think that's really important, as well as like finding in time for those things that actually matter to you, and your family.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are a couple things that you had shared of like, okay, the dishes thing. It is so true that it's it is a trade-off. And I think learning to allow yourself to experience the mess, which is something that I've struggled with. And I was reading something about how, if you grew up in a really chaotic childhood, you tend to want to assert more control, which I'm like, hello, raising my hand. Yes, because everything about my childhood growing up was like absolute chaotic and I couldn't orient myself and all that stuff. And I've seen it play out in my current life today where it's like, oh, my house has got to be like in tip top shape and the dishes have to be done and it has to be flat, like whatever. And so switching and transitioning, like my work is letting the mess happen and letting it be okay and knowing like I can either get upset because there's dishes in the sink or I can enjoy my time with my family. Like, what is the trade-off? And I think the other part of the benefit of planning is that if I find that I think it's not probably just for me, but because we all have a brain that's over 2 million years old, is that when there's uncertainty, the brain freaks out. And so maybe that's part of like for you, you're like, listen, I've got a time on my calendar when I'm going to do the dishes. And so when you're sitting there reading, you can be fully present reading with a stack of dishes because you're like, listen, I know when I'm doing my dishes. And that is also the other benefit of a plan is that it allows for your brain to calm down because your brain then knows when things are going to get done and when they're going to happen. But it's the unknown and like needing to control things. So it's like it's a balance. It's definitely head and tactical, all of it.
Yeah, 100%. I was actually just talking to my therapist about this because she said something similar about the control thing. And she's like, you can't plan everything. And I was like, well, I don't plan everything, but I like to think through possibilities because for me, I have really bad anxiety. And the more that
Mm.
I try to plan stuff, the better I can be when stuff pops up for me, right? Like
Oh
if
yeah.
I have a semi plan, so when something happens that isn't in my plan, my brain isn't also trying to figure out what are we going to do to get the morning done? But now I have to
Yeah.
think about this thing that got thrown on my plate. I'm just thinking about the thing that got thrown on my plate. And I've
Mm.
learned that planning for me is like this piece of self-care and like a proactive like method for my
Mm.
anxiety because I can go into the week again thanking Cara from Sunday and be like, "Oh, I'm so glad you like thought about these things." And also giving myself some white space and some noise. And less noise. So I plan,
Yeah.
we call it thought catcher time, like in my week, where I plan nothing. And what goes there is the stuff
Mm.
that I forgot to put on my plan and the stuff that
Yeah.
pops up, the stuff that comes to me in the shower. So like Wednesday mornings, that's when I go drop my kids off at school. That's when I do my Target pickup, right? And I can sit there.
Mm.
That's when I make my phone calls. I know when it's going to happen. And then all the stuff, because I think that's the thing for moms, like so much stuff is thrown on our plates all the time. And when we
Mm.
don't have a system to catch all the other things, we start to feel frantic and we think, screw my plan I made today. I'm just going to throw all this stuff in today. And that
Mm.
doesn't lead us down a path of success. That leads us on a path of, well, now today's plan is
Mm.
completely derailed because I decided I needed to do it all right now. And I think it goes back to like feeling this urgency. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The
Mm.
mom urgency of, but I have to do it all right now. And I know we said we're going to get very practical and there's so much mindset into it, but like,
Yeah.
what do we do about that?
My default is like breathe into it. I mean, when I see a mess or something that I'm like, my husband did, and I'm like, I can't believe you didn't pick this up. It is such a rewiring now. the body keeps a score. And so if it's the mind, the body, the spirit, like we intellectually can know something, but if our body's wired for fight or flight or stress, it takes time to unlearn that wiring piece of it. And what you said about it's just in terms of prioritization, like not getting hijacked by the things that are not important and the immediate. Like it's really learning to somewhat, I would think, like procrastinate on purpose for things that you just don't need to be doing in the moment. And that is a skill in and of itself. And so I think it's easy to say, it's easy and simple to say, but in theory and practice, I mean, it takes work to get your brain to not freak out about like, oh, an email came in, I got to get to it right away. It's like, okay, let me just calm down. It's okay. We're safe. We're not being chased by a tiger. And really just slowing things down and observing yourself as you process through that. And I think the other thing that you had said that popped up for me is like from a tactical thing, it's also just in the moment asking yourself questions. How can I make this easy? What's going on here? And that is a tactical thing. Like I catch myself asking myself questions to like slow it down, to bring awareness and be present with whatever is going on. Like we just found out one of our tenants in one of our properties is moving out at the end of May. And I'd always said, I'm like, the unit is destroyed. And I'm like, well, I'll worry about it when we get there. Well, it's definitely happening a lot sooner than what I thought. I thought for sure they're going to renew. And now I'm like, oh, okay. So they move out at the end of May, and I've got to do a total flip long distance from Charleston to Iowa. Okay, cool. Like, Amanda a year ago would have been like, yeah, but now it's like, okay, literally like just breathe. Just breathe. It'll be okay. We'll figure it out. It'll be okay. Like, yeah, we talked a lot about mindset for sure.
Yeah, I know. Well, 'cause I mean, we know, like
Yeah.
that's really like
It's a really big piece.
it is. And I think when it's coming to, I know, listen, if you're watching this, I know you're here because you were like, help me get organized and stay systematized. And I hope like you're leaving being like, I have some ideas, but I also have to this mix of like intentionality and releasing control at the
Mhm.
same time. Like we call it like intentionality and grace. Like I think it's this mix for us moms that we need both. And we can't be, and like me talking to myself, right? Like I can't try to control everything, which, again, my therapist will say that's what I would want to do. I can't control everything all the time, but it's also giving myself space to
Mm.
figure it out and to know that like not everything has to be urgent. And when you
Mhm.
are, I think, really honed into your priorities when it comes to your time, when stuff pops up, you're more equipped and better equipped to decide where it falls priority wise. Right. And I
Mhm.
think it's a learning curve and you have to give it to yourself.
Yeah,
So, okay, there's so much good stuff and I could
I
talk to
know.
you forever.
Where do you want
So
to go?
I know. I'm like, all right, so let's start to close out for those moms who are watching now who are like, all right, you told me I should just pay attention to my week and track what I'm doing. What is one less thing that maybe we didn't hit on that they need to like start really making systems in their homes work that maybe we didn't touch on or you want to hit a little harder?
Ooh, um, so many, but again, I go back to, I call it like separation of church and state, but it's separate of business and personal. So like I'm a firm believer that things have buckets. And so do like not mixing your personal and your business, and really like implementing and practicing a digital calendar and time blocking as much as you can to like figure out and see visually how you're spending your time and what you're spending your time on as well. Um, I know we kind of already talked about that, but I really just think like getting in the habit and the routine of the calendar blocking and like I use, do you use Google Drive? Are you a
Yes.
Google person? Okay.
Mhm.
So, and I guess whether you use Google Drive or Microsoft or Dropbox, I'm also Google. So my personal Google space, my Google Drive is like having that organized as well. Like there's a folder for finances, there's a folder for taxes, there's a folder for healthcare, there's a folder for vehicle, there's a folder for the house. So like having digital organization so that when you need to find something, it's easy to find it. And also physical, like I use one of the, it's not a trapper keeper, but it's sort of like a trapper keeper.
Yeah.
But I store like any physical files, like a voter registration card that I'm going to need a physical copy for, for vehicle registration, whatever, you never know. but like having those in one place versus all over the house, all scattered through, I have found that that has been immensely helpful and also like mentally keeps me organized. But then also, I know if I need something, I know exactly where I need to go to find it.
Right.
And yeah, organizing just your digital space is helpful, and like cleaning up your computer and taking the virtual trash out and like, okay, now I'm going to go and like, I think I have a pretty minimal wardrobe, and I stick to certain color shades and hues to make it easier to get dressed in the morning. And so finding ways to just purge and remove clutter from your physical space is also really important. We always have an ongoing donation box because I mean, nothing is safe in my house. Let me
Yep.
tell you that nothing is safe because
I
I'm
love
like, I don't just get it out. It's more to manage. I
Yeah.
don't want more to manage.
Well, so one thing that we do for decluttering is we have Green Drop around here, so they'll come pick up one bag. And so I
Mm,
pre-schedule each month. Yeah, it's been hard to find it like one bag. I pre-schedule every month a pickup. So no matter what, like I have a bag that goes out. So I always have like something. And if it's that morning and I'm like get the email, I'm like crap. So I grab my bag and yeah, and then nothing is safe. And I'm like, let me get it out. But I think
yeah.
it goes back to those like non-negotiable type things I was talking about. When you have to make less decisions, your brain is picked for the
Hmm.
other things and simple like getting dressed in the morning. Like that's why things like capsule wardrobes are so efficient because
Yeah.
it's one less thing that you have to think about. And then also the time save of that.
Hmm.
Speaking of papers, right? You're like looking for that paper. How much time do we waste trying to find stuff? So
Yeah.
much, right? If we don't
Yeah.
have the systems. And thinking about your homes, that's what you should think about. Like, where are you finding yourself wasting time trying to like, tax season, right? So you're like trying to find those papers. If that is a place where that's a sticking point for you, that's a good place to make a system around.
What's the
And
system? Yep.
it's like, where are you frustrated? I always talk about
Yeah.
like examples and non-examples, and it's like, what's the stuff is not working for you? Like
Hmm.
getting my kids out for school, like clothes. We used to argue about clothes, me and my daughter, all the time. Every morning it was clothes. So we stopped doing that. And on Sundays now, our system is she has like one of those little things where you pick out, put your clothes in. We argue once a week. So it's not arguing every
Yeah.
morning about what she wants to wear. On Sundays, we take 15 minutes and we lay out the
I
bottoms,
lay
lay the
it.
tops together, we put the underwear there and we put it in. So now I don't have to worry about it. She knows where her clothes are and it's one less thing. But I was finding myself every morning we were getting frustrated with each other because she wanted to wear
Mm.
shorts or something or whatever it was. And I was like, let's just do it once. Let's just do it once a week. And then I know that we have laundry done. I like the less decisions I can make in my life, the happier my brain feels.
Uh-huh. Yes, ma'am. I mean, that, yes, it's, I'm
That's
like,
it.
how can I get this out of my brain and not have to manage all of it?
100%. Oh,
Less
okay.
is more.
So good. Okay, Amanda, where can everybody find more of you and connect?
Yes, you can find me at my website. So it's Simplify with Amanda B as in boy.com. And you can also find me over on Instagram at Simplify with Amanda B.
Awesome. Everything is also going to be linked, all things Amanda, underneath this presentation. So you want to connect with her more, it is all there. Thank you for your time today and just all your
Yeah.
expertise. This was fun.
Thank you so much. And please connect with me. I look forward to seeing and chatting with all of you.
Yes. Send her all the questions so we can keep talking because
Please.
this is such a topic I think is a game changer for moms. And we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.